welcome. I mean, dear Rotar. By the way, if it's, is it okay for everyone if we record it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I would like to welcome you all, dear past governors, dear Governor Assistant Inji Hajioğlu, dear Rotarians, dear friends, dear guests. I'm an acting president of and together with Galata, with Çekmeköy, Kozyata, E-Club of Turkey, Rotary clubs, as well as San Michel Interact Club and Bahçeşehir College Interact Club, I would like to welcome you to our second international event with Serif Yenen. Some time ago, we had an excellent and fascinating presentation about really mysterious Gobekli Tepe. And as I was telling in the beginning, I mean, this is the place that everyone should visit, but at least to hear and read about it. So we actually made a recorded meeting, and we will share the link where you can watch this. So today we are going to talk about Hagia Sophia and underground structures of Istanbul. Some of you might have visited Hagia Sophia before, but I'm sure that even those who have visited it would learn something new for him or herself. So, but first of all, I would like actually today to present an award to our honorable guest, Serif Yenen, and it's a Vocational Excellence Award that we would like on behalf of Rotary to present to Serif Yenen. Award, so actually the aim of the award is to recognize and honor outstanding contribution in his field, for inspiring enthusiasm, and to set an example to others. And I think the award has found its heroes. It's true hero, and it's really well deserved, Serif Bey. Thank you so much. Yes, just for others, I mean, yes, and this is the award that reached.
Good evening to everybody from Galata Rotary, Celal Okutgen.
Good evening, good evening. Serif Yenen is a travel writer, tour guide, filmmaker, and international speaker and a lecturer. So he wrote the Turkish Odyssey in English, and he's the first guide. It's a first guidebook of Turkey ever written by Turk. So I would like to pass the word to Serif Bey, and we start.
Well,
thank you again.
Such a great honor for me to be here with you in the presence of honorable representatives of the Rotary clubs from all over the world, and to receive such an important award makes me so much motivated to do what I already do in great enthusiasm. I cannot thank you enough, and I am always at your service. It is always my pleasure to take you around all over Turkey. Yes, the previous presentation was about a mysterious place, which was called as Gobekli Tepe. That goes back to 10,000 BC. That was the place where the people, hunter-gatherers, started settled life. Such an important location in human history. And this time, together with Ms. Feruza, we were discussing about what to talk in this meeting. And we said a little bit of highlight from Istanbul and a little bit of unknown parts of Istanbul, back streets, underground parts of Istanbul. So it is going to be my pleasure to to take you around Istanbul, starting with the Hagia Sophia first, and then taking you underground. And these actually are the tours that I practically do. So I hope the pandemic is going to be over soon. And whenever you are in Turkey, it would be my pleasure to take you to these places physically as well. So whenever you are ready, Ms. Feruza, you just tell me so that I can start.
Thank you very much, Serif Bey. We can start.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Feruza already mentioned about me, so I'm not going to go into repetition. Just to wrap it up, I'm a tour guide and I've been doing this job in great enthusiasm for more than 30-something years now. I'm a guidebook author, lots of guidebooks about Turkey, about Istanbul. I'm a speaker, obviously, and I do some part-time instruction in some prestigious universities of Turkey, like the Bosphorus University or the Bilgi University. In the meantime, I'm also a travel agent to be able to do everything, organize all of my tours properly. So I combine them all. I had the honor to be the guide for Pope Benedict XVI. I had the pleasure to be the guide for Oprah Winfrey, in addition to many other celebrities as well. You can always reach me through my social media accounts. You can just type my name, Serif Yenen, in YouTube, in Instagram, in Facebook, in LinkedIn. I'm always available. If you have questions, if you have things to share, it would be my pleasure. Before we start speaking about Hagia Sophia, as I always do, because this is always a good start for those guests who are from other countries outside of Turkey, I always prefer starting with a short orientation. I start with the world map, and then I mark the location of Turkey. You see, Turkey is located at a point, at a very critical point, in the juxtaposition, at the meeting point of the three continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Because of that, Turkey, the lands of Turkey, were always a crossroads, a bridge between the cultures, and it has drawn the attention of many great civilizations, and we can count approximately 20 or 30 civilizations that have ever lived in Anatolia, in the lands of Turkey today. That's why we have such an important and such a rich cultural heritage in these lands, and we are very much happy and pleased to share these cultural heritage with the rest of the world. You are always welcome. This is the map of Turkey. As you see, it is rectangular in shape and surrounded by seas in three sides. So with this feature, it is actually a peninsula. We have the Black Sea in the north. We have the Aegean Sea in the west. We have the Mediterranean Sea in the south. Between the Black Sea and the Aegean, right in here, there is one more sea, kind of an inner sea, not a lake because it has connections with the other bodies of water. That's why it is a sea. It is the Sea of Marmara, the only sea in the world which is located within the boundaries of one country. All the other seas in the world are bounded by more than one country. So the Sea of Marmara has a connection to the Black Sea with the Bosphorus Straits in here, and Istanbul is located on the two sides of the Bosphorus there. And the Sea of Marmara is connected to the Aegean with the Dardanelles here. As you know, the famous Gallipoli campaign took place in here during the First World War. And at the entrance from the Aegean Sea to the Dardanelles, on the right-hand side, is the ancient city of Troy as well. I have noticed that from my guiding experience, many people from around the world would think Troy will be in Greece. So when they generally hear that Troy is in Turkey, they sometimes get surprised. And Turkey, in comparison to many of our neighboring countries, is actually a large country. For example, from one end on the left to the other end on the right, it is approximately 1,600 kilometers, and this is going to be like 1,000 miles. So by flight, 2 or 2.5 hour flight from one end to the other end. Turkey is located actually on 2 different continents. A little bit of Turkey lies in Europe, and majority of it lies in Asia. So as you see, this little land in here, northwest in here, it is only 3%. We call it as Trakya in the Turkish language. In English, we could say Thrace. And this is European part of Turkey. And the rest is 97%. And the Asian part is the 97%. And this Asian part of Turkey throughout history has been named as Anatolia or Asia Minor. Anatolia is an ancient Greek word, and it means the land of sunrise. So it was the Greeks in the Aegean who named this land as the land of sunrise, because when they looked at this land from the west, this was the place where the sun rose, the land of sunrise. And as for our neighbors a little, we have 2 neighbors in Europe. One of them is Greece and the other is Bulgaria. And then we have many other neighbors in the east and southeast. There is Georgia here. There is Armenia here. We have Iran in this part, and then Iraq, and then Syria. Of course, this is a very busy traffic area, and we always have to be paying a lot of attention to these parts of Turkey as well. A little bit of geography, maybe. The highest mountain in Turkey is Mount Ararat, and it is located near the Armenian border. It is located near the Iranian border. We call it Ağrı Dağı. That's the highest peak in Turkey. This is the place where Noah's Ark was believed to have landed on after the flood. So it's a biblical mountain. It's always covered with snow. And then this is a beautiful photograph of Mount Ararat, for example. And then we have the largest lake in Turkey. It's also in the east, and it is called as Lake Van, V-A-N, Lake Van. It's almost like a sea, and you cannot see the other side from one side. It is so big, and it's also a beautiful scenery. There's an island in the lake, Lake Van, and the name of the island is Akdamar. There's an Armenian church going back to the 10th century AD, and beautiful scenery in Lake Van. The second largest lake in Turkey is Lake Tuz. Tuz means salt, the salt lake actually. It's a very shallow lake, but 33% of the water is salt. So almost half of the salt that we use in Turkey comes from here. In summer months, it dries out, and the soil is 33% salt. So they just get the soil from there with the conveyors. It goes to the refinery, and it turns out as table salt, for example. And then we have 2 rivers in the eastern part of Turkey, also mentioned in the Bible. One of these rivers is the Euphrates. It is the one in here, and it originates from the high mountains of eastern Anatolia and goes down to Syria. And the other one is the Tigris River. Likewise, it originates from here and goes down to Iraq. And a nice shot of the Euphrates River will be in this picture here. Then in the southeastern part of Turkey, this was the subject of my previous presentation, Şanlıurfa, and near the city of Şanlıurfa is the Gobekli Tepes site. And this is the Neolithic period, 10,000 BC site. Megaliths, the T-shaped megaliths, making a circle together with 2 more taller and bigger megaliths in the center, and with lots of human figures on them. The Göbekli Tepe site was featured in many notable international magazines like Der Spiegel, like Geo, like National Geographic, and the titles were so interesting: The Garden of Eden, The Birth of Religion, the world's first temple. So this place is so important, so interesting, and the more you know about it, the more curious you get about it. So you can reach the recording of my previous presentation. Ms. Feruza is going to share the link in the chat box here, so you can always reach that there. And then in central Turkey, we have an area called Escapadocia. This is such a unique place, volcanic formations with the erosion, within millions of years, many cones with caps on them were formed, and people carved them out. People live inside these cones. People made luxury hotels together with jacuzzis and so on. There are hot air balloon rides there. It is such a unique place. This is also one of the must-see places in the world. And then if we go to the west, near the major city of Izmir, there is an ancient city called Ephesus. This is also one of the most important ancient cities in the whole world. Lots of cruise ships go there, the port of Kuşadası. It is such a popular place, and excavations have been continuing there for more than 100 years. This is the famous Celsus Library, for example, one of the three famous libraries of the ancient world, in addition to Alexandria and Pergamon. Then a little inland from the Aegean Sea, right in here, is a site called Pamukkale. This is a natural formation, natural thermal pools, cascading like this. And inside these natural pools, there is thermal water with high amount of calcium. So it is the calcium that gives the white color in here. So this is also a unique natural beauty in Turkey. So Istanbul, we are going to talk more about Istanbul, but Istanbul was the capital before Ankara became the capital in 1923. So Ankara from 1923, it's right in the center here, has been the official capital, and Ankara is the second largest city in Turkey with approximately a population of like 5 million. And then we have the third largest city, which is Izmir. It is on the Aegean coast, and there are about 4.5 million people living in Izmir. So Istanbul is 17 million. So we need to focus more on Istanbul. As I said, there is a strait connecting the Black Sea to the Marmara Sea here, and the two sides of the Bosphorus Strait is Istanbul. This is a closer look at Istanbul. Now we can see the Bosphorus Strait, which is like 32 kilometers, like 20 miles between the Black Sea and the Sea of Marmara. We have 3 suspension bridges on it today. And at the entrance from the Sea of Marmara into the Bosphorus, you see there is a little bay here, which is named as the Golden Horn. So the Golden Horn on one side, the Sea of Marmara on the other side, and the Bosphorus at the tip. There is a peninsula here. We're going to focus on this peninsula here. There is an aerial view of the Bosphorus, a beautiful location. You know, this is much larger than a river, much cleaner than a river. It's always blue, different shades of blue. There are strong currents on the Bosphorus or in the Bosphorus. We get a lot of fish from the Bosphorus, and people living in Istanbul are dying to live in places with the Bosphorus view. So the houses with the Bosphorus view are minimum a few times more expensive than the other houses there, but it is such a beautiful city. And now this is a plan showing the Bosphorus, Sea of Marmara on this side and the Black Sea on the other side. These are the 3 suspension bridges on it, and the Golden Horn here, and the historical peninsula, which we are going to focus. So the old city of Constantinople was actually right in here. And this is another view of the same peninsula, the Golden Horn, the Sea of Marmara, and the Bosphorus. And you see, these are the ancient walls of Constantinople. And this is the historic peninsula, which was once upon a time called as Constantinople. Before Istanbul became an important city, from about the 7th century BC, it was a small settlement with a population of 15, 20,000, and they lived in this part of the city with some fortification walls here. It was like a Greek colony, and they survived. They made their living with the taxes that they collected from the ships passing through the Bosphorus in here. After passing through the Iron Age, and then the Persian domination, and then the Hellenistic period, and then the Roman era, Istanbul passed through all these periods. Then the time of Constantine the Great came. Constantine the Great was one of the tetrarchs from the 4th century AD in the Roman era. So this period of the tetrarchs was the time in which there was not one ruler for the Roman Empire. So there were lots of civil wars. And Constantine I, later he was named as Constantine the Great, Constantine I was fighting against the other tetrarchs, and he had his last battle not too far away from the city of Byzantium. This was the former name. This was the earliest name of Istanbul, Byzantium. And he was not too far away from Byzantium, and he won that battle against Licinius. And then he announced himself as the sole ruler of the Roman Empire. As expected, or he was expected to go to Rome and rule the Roman Empire from the capital city of Rome. But he didn't do that. He did something extraordinary. He wanted to have his own capital city in his own name. After trying a few different locations, he finally decided for his capital. He chose Byzantium, the city of Byzantium, to be his new capital. So this little town of 15,000, 20,000 people, which was named as Byzantium, suddenly, with the selection of Constantine the Great, was going to be announced as the capital of the great Roman Empire. Such a big change in the history of Istanbul. It was a big and it was a radical, it was a sharp change. So Constantine, of course, he had to prepare Byzantium to be the capital for the Roman Empire. So whatever they had in the capital city of Rome, they had to have here as well. So he started building lots of public buildings in here. He built a forum, he built some commercial streets, he built the palace in here. There was a small hippodrome for the chariot races, he enlarged it. So he did lots of other things. And then he built new walls. You see the Constantine walls, he built them here. So from about 20,000 people, which used to live only in this little portion, in the time of Constantine, they spread all around, and the population of the city increased to approximately 170,000 people. So in the year 330, officially, he made this city the new capital for the Roman Empire. So the name of the city was changed from Byzantium into Nea Roma, the new Rome. Later, his name was given to the city. Constantinopolis, in the ancient Greek language, polis is a city. The city of Constantine would be Constantinopolis. So it was named as Constantinople. And this is the aerial view of the city of Constantinople. Today, we have the Hagia Sophia here, we have the Blue Mosque here, we have the Topkapı Palace here, and the Golden Horn is right behind, and the body of water in the front, that is the Sea of Marmara, and the Bosphorus starts here and goes all the way to the Black Sea towards the north on the right-hand side here. So up until the time of Constantine the Great, the official religion with the Roman Empire was paganism. And Christianity was strictly forbidden. The Roman emperors from before did not want the Romans to convert into Christianity. They did not want to lose the control. That's why it was forbidden strictly. And those people who were identified to be Christians were tortured, and they were going through persecutions and so on. But very interestingly, Constantine's mother Helen, was one of those early Christians, and Constantine was a lot more tolerant towards Christianity. That's why he made Christianity free. And not only that, in the nearby city, which was named as Nicaea or Nicaea, this is the picture from Nicaea, he gathered the representatives of Christianity to discuss the Christian matters, whether or not Jesus was the God himself or the Son of God or both. So representatives from all over the world, they came there. They had their earliest council in the name of Christianity, and Constantine himself was going to be the leader of these discussions. And decisions taken in this council were named as the Nicene Creed, and they were all accepted by all of the Christian churches around the world. That's why it was very important. So after Christianity became free, Constantine started building lots of churches around as well. And later on, together with his mother, the two were elevated to the level of saints. And his mother, especially at a very late age, is said that she went to the Holy Land after a vision that she had, and she found the true cross, and then she came back to Constantinople with pieces from the true cross. As you see, there are halos behind or around their heads because they have been elevated to the level of saints there. So this was in the early 4th century. A little later, towards the end of the 4th century, there was another Roman emperor named as Theodosius I. In the year 392, Theodosius I banned paganism and announced Christianity to be the official religion for the Roman Empire. Such a big change. Then they started destroying every pagan temple within the Roman Empire, sparing the pieces to be reused in other buildings from the churches. The same emperor, Theodosius I, in order to split his lands, the lands of the Roman Empire, between his two sons, Arcadius and Honorius, he divided the Roman Empire somewhere from the Balkans in Europe, and this was in the year 395. So it became two empires, the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire had the capital of Constantinople, and the capital city for the Western Roman Empire was Rome. The Western Roman Empire did not last long. In the next century, in the 5th century, it collapsed. But the Eastern Roman Empire continued for more than 1,000 years. And it was also named as the Byzantine Empire. This was not a name used by people themselves. This was a name given to this Eastern Roman Empire in the 18th century, in the 19th century, by some European historians in order to emphasize the difference between the real Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The language was different, the religion was different, the culture was different, and the architecture was different. That's why historians wanted to emphasize this difference. That's why, rather than using the word Roman, they came up with a new suggestion, and this was the Byzantine Empire, and they derived this word from the earliest name of the city of Istanbul, and it was well accepted, and today either one is okay. I mean, the Eastern Roman Empire or Byzantine Empire will be all right. So the Byzantine Empire starts with the division in 395 and continues until the collapse of the Byzantine Empire, and that was in the year 1453 with the coming of the Turks in Istanbul. The Byzantine Empire came to an end. So Theodosius II, in the 5th century, wanted to enlarge the city even more. So he built these walls, the 5th century walls. And the Constantine walls were in here, but they were destroyed, and they took the pieces away from here, and they used the stones in the construction of the new walls in the 5th century. And at its heights in the 6th century or in the following centuries, the population of the city reached up until 500,000, for example, and it became one of the most prominent cities in the whole world. So these walls are still standing. I mean, not completely, but more than half are still standing there. And it is great to see them there and to tour around them as well. And this is a view from these beautiful 5th century walls. And these were the most durable walls in the whole world. And together with a moat in the front, and then one layer of outside wall, and then one more inner wall. So they were really very formidable. And Istanbul is known to be one of the most frequently besieged cities in the world. There were lots of people trying to attack Constantinople. It was the Russians, it was the Avars, it was the Bulgarians, it was the Turks, it was the Crusaders, it was the Arabs, one after another, lots of sieges, not many success. So Istanbul fell only twice. First time it fell to the Crusaders, and that was in 1204. And it was plundered so badly, and even after Constantinople was taken from the Crusaders by the Byzantines, it was never able to recover anymore. 2 centuries later, 1453, this time it was the Turks. And when the Turks captured Constantinople, they announced it as the new capital for the Ottoman Empire, and this was in the year 1453, and they converted the Hagia Sophia into a mosque. But before that, let me take you to the 6th century again. In the 6th century, there came another prominent emperor, and that was Justinian. Justinian was not from the royal family, and Justinian was coming from a military background, and he was able to come to power after his uncle, and they came to power with some military coups. So that's why people did not like them much. Although he ruled the Byzantine Empire for a long time, he was also married to a very wise woman, and her name was Theodora. And one day, for example, in his early years of his reign, he went to the ancient hippodrome to start the chariot races there, and he came across with some protests. People did not like Justinian much. They thought he did not deserve the throne. He was not coming from the royal family, and he was treating people badly, and he was collecting too much taxes from people, and the administration was very cruel towards people. So people did not like him. That's why they wanted to show their dislike, and they were protesting against him when he entered into the hippodrome. And as a new emperor with not much experience, he didn't know how to handle these protests. And he started putting a lot of pressure on people, and that pressure got back to him. So those, who knows, the innocent protesters got out of the hippodrome and started destroying everything that they came across. So one of the most important buildings that they destroyed would be the Hagia Sophia. So when Constantine in the 4th century made Christianity free, he started constructing a few churches. And one of these churches was Hagia Sophia. And it was a smaller building with a wooden roof. And his time was not long enough to see or to be able to complete the building. That's why after Constantine the Great passed away, his son must have completed the Hagia Sophia, the first Hagia Sophia. A small building with a wooden roof, and it didn't survive much because in the early 5th century, there was a riot in town during the reign of Theodosius II, and the Hagia Sophia, which was started by Constantine the Great, was destroyed during those riots. So Theodosius II had to rebuild the Hagia Sophia, this time with an atrium, with a courtyard, but much larger, maybe as large as the last one, the current one, for example. So the second Hagia Sophia, which was built by Theodosius II, was destroyed by those protesters coming out of the hippodrome in the 6th century during the reign of Justinian. So those protesters turned into an angry mob. They went to prisons, they rescued the prisoners from there, and they were crazily destroying everything that they came across. And they had one of the descendants from the royal family. They made him wear the costumes of an emperor, and then they were headed for the palace, and they were going to get Justinian down and make their own candidate the new emperor. Justinian, as an inexperienced emperor, didn't know how to deal with these. He was so scared. And they were making maybe the last meeting for the Senate, and they were making escape plans. But his very wise wife, Theodora, the moment she heard about their escape plans, she got crazy. Although as a woman, she had no right to join these meetings, she went to the meeting, and then she must have made a speech there to convince them. She must have said, probably, gentlemen, is this all that you can do? I mean, you can run away so easily, you have enough treasures, and you can live until the end of your lives. But is this all? So probably something like that. And then they changed their mind, and they decided to stay, and they sent some messengers to the protesters, and the protesters were invited to go back to the hippodrome. They said, the Emperor Justinian is going to negotiate with you there. So they believed in that. They went back to the hippodrome. There were approximately 30,000 people in these protesters, among these protesters. So once they came inside the hippodrome, the armies of Justinian started coming over and trapping them inside. They shut down all of the gates, and they entered together with their swords, and then they started slaughtering those protesters inside the hippodrome. So 30,000 people, 30,000 people were slaughtered there, killed. It was such a terrible thing. After a few days, after everything was under control, Justinian was able to go out of his palace, and he went to the place of the Hagia Sophia, and the building which was built by Theodosius II was not standing there anymore. It was completely destroyed. And he was not a religious emperor, actually. He was still carrying the blood of those 30,000 people in his hands. And he had to show off a little bit. He had to make a big show in the eyes of people. And that's why he called his two architects. These two architects were named as Anthemius and Isidorus. One of them was a mathematician. They came from the two cities, from the area of Ephesus in the Aegean region, for example. One of them is from Anthemius, one of them is from Tralles, the other one is from Miletus. And he asked these two architects to rebuild the Hagia Sophia from the beginning, but he wanted this Hagia Sophia to be the largest religious shrine ever built. It is said that like 10,000 workers started working there with many shifts, with no interruption, day and night. They had to work. You know, it's like a miracle, within about 5 years, these two architects were able to complete the new Hagia Sophia building. And this was in the year 537. And Justinian was there for the opening ceremony. And he was so proud of his work. And he was murmuring to himself while entering into the building. And he said, "Oh, Shlomo, I have surpassed thee." Because until the construction of the new Hagia Sophia, the most popular religious shrine of the time was the great temple, which was built by Solomon in Jerusalem. And with this Hagia Sophia, Justinian said he beat Shlomo, he surpassed it. So 537 was the beginning year for the current Hagia Sophia, and it was used as a church continuously for 916 years altogether. 916 years as a church. And later on, as I just mentioned, in the year 1453, Turks came to Constantinople, captured Constantinople, and they made Constantinople their new capital city. And the Ottoman Sultan, in my view, was the Turkish version of Alexander the Great, Turkish version of Constantine the Great. Constantine the Great was the Roman version of Alexander the Great. So I can catch lots of similarities between these leaders. Constantine the Great, Alexander the Great, and Sultan Mamet II. Sultan Mamet II was a very young sultan. He was only 20, 21 years old. He had lots of traumas from his childhood, but he was a genius. He had a lot of ambition. He wanted to be the ruler of the whole world, just like Alexander the Great, just like Constantine the Great. He was able to speak like 6, 7 languages. He was able to write poetry in the Persian language. He was able to read Homer in the ancient Greek language. He was such a talented man. And after making preparations for a few years, he was able to capture the unbeatable city of Constantinople after a siege of 53 days, for example. And after entering into the city, the first place that he visited was the Hagia Sophia. And he looked at the Hagia Sophia in great admiration. And he loved it. You know, up until then, he only heard about it. For the first time, he was seeing it. Lots of Byzantines were hiding inside the Hagia Sophia. When they heard that the Turks were already inside the city, they were so scared and they closed themselves inside the Hagia Sophia and they were shaking and praying there. And they thought that Turks would slaughter them all. So Mehmet, this young sultan, gave an order to his soldiers not to kill people, but they were able to take them as captives. And then he saw some of his soldiers who were damaging the building, trying to get some loots and so on. He stopped everyone and he said, everything in this city is mine. If you damage, I take your heads. So he was, at the end of the day, after lots of damages here and there, it is said that, I don't know how correct it is, he was such a wise man, I don't know how correct it is, it is said that he cried after the damage that he saw throughout the city. Whatever the case was, he looked at the Hagia Sophia in great admiration. It was a Tuesday, and he said, let's pray the next Friday noontime prayer in here. So from Tuesday until Friday, they just had a few days for the preparations. Of course, they immediately built a wooden minaret in one of the corners in here, and they took away all of the icons inside, portable liturgy from inside, they took them away. And for the Turks, the images of people would be like idolatry. You know, in Islam, especially while worshiping, you cannot worship God while you are looking at some images in front of you. It is going to be like idolatry. That's why pictures are not allowed in Islam. So they did not have any intention to damage the building either. What did they do? They just simply whitewashed the mosaics or the faces in the mosaics, and that was it. But whitewashing or painting had to be repeated too frequently. It was not that easy to do it over and over and over. So after a certain point, like the 18th century, they stopped painting them. They developed a special coat of plaster, and they covered the whole mosaic together with the faces and everything. And that way, as if they knew that one day these mosaics would be cleaned and restored, they covered them all and they preserved them, you know. Anyway, with the conversion of the Hagia Sophia from a church into a mosque with the order of Mehmet II in the year 1453, Hagia Sophia became the imperial mosque for the Ottoman sultans. Before, it was the imperial church, and it became the imperial mosque. Mehmet did not even bother changing the name of the building. The name of the building is Hagia Sophia, two Greek words, Hagia Sophia, Hagia Sophia, meaning divine wisdom. So this is not a church dedicated to a saint who is called as Sophia. There is no such a thing. Divine wisdom is one of the attributes of Jesus Christ. So the Church of Hagia Sophia means the Church of Holy Wisdom, meaning Jesus Christ, dedicated to Jesus Christ. Because Justinian was pushing the two architects to complete the building as early as possible, they didn't have the time for the mortar to settle, to dry enough, and so on. That's why the dome was a little bit too weak. Like 20, 25 years after the construction was completed in the 6th century AD, a big earthquake hit the city and the dome came down. That's why the dome had to be replaced. As you see, this is the Hagia Sophia, which was built by Justinian, but the dome fell down, so they had to rebuild the dome. The next time that they built the dome, they made it higher than the previous one, so that it would be more durable. And we have 4 minarets around this today. In the 16th century, in the 17th century, they added minarets in the 4 corners, so it became the imperial mosque for the Turkish people. So, as I said, Mehmet II did not even change the name of the building. It was the Hagia Sophia Church, and it became the Hagia Sophia Mosque, and it was the imperial mosque. As you see, the minarets, not all of them are the same because they were made at different times. That's why not all of them will look like. This is a great photographs from inside the building. And we were making a documentary, and we were able to get some special permission. This place where we took the photograph, this was like 10 years ago, let's say. This is one more floor above the galleries, which was not open to public. There is no, and we were able to reach this place by some stairways going from outside and so on. But look at the beauty of the building. You see, here is the main apse, and above the main apse, there is a mosaic here. We're going to see the mosaics later. Under normal conditions, the Greek Orthodox churches should face the direction of east, but the mosques, with the conversion, the direction of the building was a problem because the mosques, wherever they are, should face the direction of Kaaba in Mecca. Kaaba is the place dedicated to God, and that's the holiest building in the world of Islam. And the Kaaba direction from Istanbul is kind of southeast. That's why, if you look carefully, this is the additional prayer niche, which was added in the Muslim period, and it is not in the center of the main apse. It is off-centered because it is required to face the direction of Mecca, which is like 10, 12 degrees farther south from the southeast. And in the 4 corners, there are the winged angels, the seraphim angels. We are going to take a look at them. And these inscriptions are the calligraphy names of God, Allah, and Prophet Muhammad, and the caliphs, which were added in the Turkish period as well. Let's continue with the construction material. When we look at the Hagia Sophia, we see that it was built with bricks. But normally, what would you do when you have a brick building? You have a plaster, and then you paint it. Byzantines were masters of marble, so they didn't do that. They covered the whole walls with marble panels, but not ordinary marble. They used different color marble with spatial patterns on them. When you slice the marble in thicknesses like 2-3 centimeters, when you slice it into 2 pieces, for example, there are going to be veins in the marble. Just like a tailor they were trying to book match the patterns on the marble. And this technique is called as the skutlosis technique. And almost all around the walls, they used pieces of marble in different colors and the motifs, the patterns, book matching with each other. And then they put a frame around it. It became like a painting hung on the wall, for example. Other than that, on the floors, it's going to be white color marble, but still with the book matching technique. The patterns always would book match with each other. And then look at the capitals, for example. This is a Byzantine style capital made out of marble. How do you think this kind of a capital is possible to make in the 6th century AD? Imagine one block of marble with some hand drills. They would make these holes just like making a lace work. And then 2 scrolls on the 2 sides, and then the acanthus leaves, and then the monogram of Justinian and his wife, Theodora. Typical Byzantine style capitals all around the Hagia Sophia. And as a general rule, the floors were covered with white color marble. The walls were covered with higher quality, different color marble panels, and all of the ceilings were covered with mosaics. And here and there, they had scenes made with mosaics as well. The mosaic art is such a unique art, and Byzantines were so good in that. Think about tiny pieces of colorful stones cut in cubic shapes, and each piece is named as tesserae. And by using like a glue type of a mortar, you put these tiny pieces together and you fix them, and you use different color tesserae, different color stones. So when you put these different color stones together, you obtain the pictures. This is so unique. They don't use any paint in this. So the green is from the green stone and the black is from the black stone. Only the yellow is from gold leaves. They had glass and they covered the glass with gold leaves. That's why it is shining like gold, because it was made with gold. And this beautiful mosaic was made in the 10th or 11th century at a later time. And it is above the imperial entrance into the building. As you see, infant Jesus together with the Virgin Mary in the center. And we have 2 more figures on the 2 sides, 2 men standing. And this is Justinian. His name is inscribed here as well. And he is the founder of the church, and he is offering his church to Jesus. And the one on the right is Constantine the Great, and he is accepted to be the founder of the city of Constantinople, and he is offering his city to Jesus. So it is a beautiful piece of mosaic art in here. This is in the galleries, and only the upper section of this mosaic has survived to our day. In the middle is Jesus, and one side is the Virgin Mary, and the other is Saint John the Baptist. You know, in the Greek Orthodox Church, we don't see much crucifixion scenes. The Greek Orthodox people do not prefer showing Jesus while he's suffering. It doesn't mean that they don't have the crucifixion scenes. They do have, but it is so little. So Greek Orthodox people generally prefer showing Jesus like a victorious emperor, the Pantocrator, the Pantocrator, the creator of the universe. So this trio is a very frequently used image. The Greek people call it as deesis. And it is from the Last Judgment Day. Jesus is the judge, and he is going to judge everyone, whether or not they will go to heaven or hell. And the Virgin Mary on one side, Saint John the Baptist on the other side, are interceding with Jesus Christ in the name of mankind. So deesis, the word deesis is a Greek word, and it means interceding, like kind of begging. They are begging Jesus to forgive humankind. It is a beautiful mosaic piece there. Now I'm going to show you a few photos from here and there. For example, this is again the interior. This is the main apse. This is the additional prayer niche, which is off-centered. The seat for the imam, for the Muslim prayers, for example. And above the main apse, you can see infant Jesus together with the Virgin Mary in here. And these are the seraphim angels in the four corners of the dome. And these are the calligraphy panels all around the building. Now, this is infant Jesus together with the Virgin Mary. This is like this one here, the main mosaic above the main apse. We are taking a closer look at it. Infant Jesus and the Virgin Mary. And this one is the calligraphy panel with the name of God. You see, this one here and this one here are together in the same picture. I'm going to show you the current photograph of this, but I always ask my guests, where else in the world you can find Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and Allah in the same frame, in the same picture. This is so unique. You know, this has been like this for so many years. The Hagia Sophia, as I mentioned earlier, from 537 in the 6th century, from the time of Justinian, up until 1453, for 916 years, it was used as a church. And then 1453, it became a mosque. And it was used as a mosque for 461 years. The fact that it was the imperial mosque during the Ottoman times means it got a lot of support, I mean monetary support from the sultans. So it was restored many times. That's why it has been able to survive so many years, actually. So from 1453 up until the time of Atatürk. Atatürk is the name of our founding leader from 1923. He is our great leader. He is the one who made the modern Turkey, secular Turkey, out of the defeated Ottoman Empire. That's why a majority of our population almost worship Atatürk. We like him so much. And Atatürk believed that the Hagia Sophia was like a World Heritage place. And rather than using it as a mosque, it would be better to keep it as a museum. So in 1935, with a decision taken during the time of Atatürk, Atatürk was the president, it was made a museum. So 916 years as a church, 461 years as a mosque. And then it became a museum. So it was a museum for about 80-something years, up until last year. Last year, Turkey decided to make this building a mosque again. So today, it is a functioning mosque. And it is still open to visitors. We can still see the mosaics here and there with some limits. I'm going to give more details on that. So with the conversion of the Hagia Sophia into a mosque, you see they covered the whole floors with carpets and they added all the Islamic calligraphy here and there, and no more mosaics with faces, and it continued as a mosque just like that. In the Turkish period, in the Muslim period, they covered many parts of the building with beautiful calligraphy. For example, this is the main dome. Before the calligraphy was written here, probably there was a mosaic showing the face of Jesus here, or at least a cross. But the Turkish people wrote some verses from the Quran. And these verses are about light from the Quran also. And the calligraphy art here was written by a very notable calligraphy artist from the 19th century, from the time of Sultan Mahmud II. And the name of the calligraphy artist was Kazasker Mustafa İzzet Efendi, a very notable calligraphy artist. Look at the beauty of the letters in Arabic. Although we don't understand what it says, look at the proportions of the letters with each other, and you can watch this for many minutes, for a long time. It relaxes you, you know. In a culture in which you are not permitted to make pictures of Prophet Muhammad, of God, or whatever, of course, you are going to replace it with something. So you cannot make the picture of Prophet Muhammad, but you can write his name, you can write the name of God, or you can describe the beauty of Prophet Muhammad in writing. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's why the calligraphy art in Islam improved a lot. Here, we have a better view from the gallery level, looking down to the prayer niche, mihrab, for the imam. This is the name of God, Allah, and this is the name of Prophet Muhammad. And there are 4 names of the 4 caliphs. These caliphs are the successors of Prophet Muhammad when he passed away. Their names were Abu Bakr, Osman, Umar, and Ali. So in every mosque in Turkey, we have these calligraphy panels with the names of God, Allah, and Prophet Muhammad, and then the caliphs, and then the 2 grandsons of Prophet Muhammad, Hassan and Hussein. It has been something very typical. As you see, right in here, to the left-hand side of the main apse, there is a special section, and this was the royal box. And this was the place where the Ottoman sultans, whenever they came to the mosque to pray, like the Friday noontime prayers or the 2 religious holidays every year, whenever they came to the mosque to pray, they would pray in this royal box for safety reasons. And here is the pulpit. This is also from the Muslim period. On special days like the Friday noontime prayer, the imam is going to pause the prayer for a while, and he's going to climb up the stairway here, stand in the middle, turn his face towards people, and give a sermon to people in the Turkish language, and then do some chantings from the Quran, and finish the rituals there, and go back to his mihrab, the seat, and resume the prayer there. And look at the Hagia Sophia from outside, and you can see the different style minarets in the 4 corners. And in the Turkish period, Hagia Sophia became a very complex, I mean, a very large Ottoman complex, together with the mosque, with some additional monumental tombs for the sultans and their family members, like a royal cemetery here, and a library inside, a school of theology behind, kitchens for the poor people in the outside corner, with some primary schools, with the ablutional fountains and so on. So it became like a Ottoman Muslim complex, like a compound with many other buildings inside. Now it is a modern picture from these months. This is how it looks today. You see, it still keeps its beauty. There is no damage to the building. The floors are covered with rugs. So it is open to visitors. It is a functioning mosque. So functioning mosques are open to visitors only at the times when there are no prayers. So if it is not the prayer time, you can take off the shoes, leave the shoes in the boxes outside, and you can go in. You just need to cover your hair, I mean, for ladies, and you can look around. And there are a few curtains kind of covering partly some of the mosaics here and there. So you can see the mosaic a little bit, but it is not fully open. So I think this way they found a nice balance. Like this one, for example, you you can see the mosaic behind, and these are the curtains covering it in the front. Now, I have spoken about the most important highlight in Istanbul. That is the Hagia Sophia, definitely. It was such an important church. It was such an important mosque. From the architectural point of view, it is such an important place. How many other 1,500-year-old buildings can you show me from around the world with the roof still on top? I mean, I know like Pantheon in Rome, maybe a few other buildings, but not many actually. So it is a big deal. So from the architectural point of view, from the religious point of view, from the historical point of view, Hagia Sophia is such an important place. Now, I'm going to take you to some unknown parts of Istanbul, the places which probably you cannot find on your own, except for a few of them. That's why I believe it is going to be interesting. This is the old city, Constantinople, and starting from the area of Hagia Sophia, covering this whole area here in the front, this was the palace complex from the Byzantines. So after the Turks came to Istanbul from 1453, Mehmet built the Turkish palace in here. So the Turkish palace, the Topkapı Palace is here, the Byzantine palace here. But the Byzantine palace was destroyed over the centuries. By the time the Turkish people came to Istanbul, it was already destroyed. And people started building new homes on top of them. Today, wherever you dig here, you're going to find some antiquity underground. So this whole area is strictly under preservation. If you want to make a construction here, you need some you have some strict laws, and you need supervisors from the Museum of Archaeology and so on. It is really very difficult. So in this area, there are lots of ruins from the palace, and from around the place, there are also some churches with underground sections, some baths, some cisterns. So we are going to take a look at them now. For example, not too far away from Hagia Sophia is a cafe. And inside the cafe is a courtyard. If you know where to go, otherwise it is not advertised, by taking a few steps from the courtyard of the cafe, you go into the Byzantine Palace and you go back to like 1,500 years ago. These are the ruins underneath the cafe. So they found this place by coincidence, and it is recorded with the museum, of course. It is privately owned. You cannot do whatever you like here. If you really want to do something as the owner of this place, you have to make some nice projects. You have to convince the authorities that you will be able to preserve it. You will be able to keep it well. And then you can make an art gallery here. You can make a hotel here. Who knows? You can make different things here depending on your creativity and depending on your financial status. You can create wonderful ideas in here. Take a look. I take lots of guests here. Also the locals. Many Turkish people don't know about these places, and it is so interesting. By taking like 10, 20 steps down, you're going back to 1,500 years. You know, it is such an interesting experience. This is still the same place. Then, still in the same area, not too far away from the Blue Mosque, is a hotel. It's called as the Eresin Hotel. You know, during the construction of the hotel, they found some ruins underground. And the hotel, after the Museum of Archaeology finished the excavations, they got special permission to use these ruins found in the construction for decoration in the lobby of the hotel. This is part of a cistern. Byzantine, one of the palace cisterns, and it is also said that it was not a cistern, it was the water division point. You see, there are walls here, there's another, this is a rectangular building, and water was collected in this building, and from here it was distributed to different quarters of the palace, and it is still there. It is so interesting. And with many other ruins exhibited in the lobby of the hotel, it becomes such an interesting place. It becomes a valuable place. You know, if you take these pieces of columns, for example, to the museum, it's going to be one of the 1 million other columns. But if you exhibit it in the place where it was excavated, in the hotel lobby, it becomes a lot more valuable, for example. In the middle of the restaurant of the hotel, on the floor, is a mosaic like this. And in this mosaic, Byzantine period mosaic, you can even see and identify the fish. Fish has always been important in Christianity, for example. And you can see the tiny pieces of the tesserae. And what did the hotel owners do? They covered the place with a glass, and they did some ventilation inside. So it has become part of the decoration of the hotel lobby. A little farther down from there, by the water, is the Buccaleon Palace, one of the late Byzantine period palaces on the shore. And it was on the water. And underneath this palace is another cistern. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get inside. Sometimes you cannot. So it is sometimes locked, sometimes not. And you know, while we are touring, we try. It is dirty inside, but you can easily identify the capitals, identify the columns, which were all recycled from the pagan temples and so on. Then in the Istanbul University area, in the Beyazıt area, there is a mosque called as Kalenderhane Mosque. But originally, this mosque was one of the Byzantine churches, going as early as the 5th century. Theotokos Kriotisa Church. With the coming of the Turks, first it was made like a brotherhood building, like a convent, and later on it was made a mosque, and then it was named as Kalenderhane Mosque. And underneath this mosque, underneath this building, church, mosque, whatever you say, you can see the capitals from the church period, for example. There is one section which is not open to public, and sometimes we get some special permission, we get in there. It's a small chapel underneath the building with frescoes on the walls. It's so interesting. It is so unique, you know. Saint Francis is depicted here on the walls, and some of the frescoes have been taken to the museum, but some are still there. And if we are lucky enough and we can get the permission, we can get in here and we can see that. It is really unique. And then in the Laleli neighborhood in Istanbul, there is another mosque called as Bodrum Mosque. Obviously, by looking at the brick walls, you can say it was a church before. Of course, it was the Merovingian church. And in the 10th century, one of the Byzantine emperors wanted to have a palace for himself there. So there was a rotunda from before, and that emperor, Lekapanos, converted the rotunda into a cistern, water reservoir, and he built his palace on top. And then he built a palace church. In order to keep the church at the same level with his palace, he had to build a substructure underneath. And that substructure was used for some burials of the dignitaries from his family. But today, this church has been converted into a mosque together with the underneath section. And here was made a marketplace first. Today, it is under restoration, and we don't know what they are going to do with the cistern part of the building. And this is the interior of the mosque. And here is the substructure, underneath section of the building. And there's even some fresco on the wall. And this is the rotunda, which was used as the cistern when the palace was constructed. And for a long while, it was like a garbage. Later on, it was cleaned, and they rented out to many shopkeepers. And this was like a bazaar, like a marketplace. But now they are restoring it today. In the Grand Bazaar area, you go to a cafe, like a water pipe cafe, and you get some permission from the owner. He allows you to go 2 floors down from his cafe, and you see some Byzantine period substructures there. Some buildings related to probably water system of the city. Or you go to a big company building, and you ask for permission from the owner, and they allow you to go 3 floors down from the building. And then you come across with some Byzantine period ruins. Some parts of the villas, which once upon a time took place in the area of the palace of the Byzantine Empire, for example. Today, this section is privately owned, and it is the dining section for the employees of this company, for example. Or in a private building, you go downstairs underneath the building, and you come across with the ruins of a bathhouse, Roman period bathhouse. They are all visible there. Look at this. You know, I have to mention something very interesting and something very important about Istanbul. Think about Istanbul, this historic peninsula, this Constantinople, with walls all around, with 500,000 people living inside. So it is a big castle, actually, city castle. So there is a big problem, or there has been a big problem with the city. What is the problem? The problem is water. They never had enough fresh water supply inside the city. You remember, as I said, Istanbul was one of the most frequently attacked or besieged cities in the world. It was under sieges most of the times. So under normal conditions, if there was no war, bringing water from faraway sources was no problem. With many aqueducts here and there, they were able to bring water from distances like 150, 180 miles, 200 and something kilometers, you know, from Thrace, from really faraway places. So aqueducts worked well, and they were able to carry water, and in times of peace, water was not a problem. But whenever there was a war, whenever there was a siege, the enemy would know the weak points of the city. One of the most important weak points is the lack of water in the city. So the water came from outside. So if there was a siege, the enemy would cut the water supply from outside, and they would leave you on your own with no water. This was such a big risk. That's why Byzantines had to find a solution to this. What is the solution that they found? They would bring the water in times of peace, and they would store the water. In case there was a war, they would continue using the water from the storage place. And as a result, in the Byzantine era, Byzantines built approximately from 400 to 500 underground water storage places, and they called these as cisterns. Cisterns, water storage places. And aqueducts are all around. They brought the water with the aqueducts. And these are still, I mean, the aqueducts around the city, beautiful architecture. Some of them are from the Roman period, I like the Eastern Roman period. Some of them are from the Turkish period, and they always brought the water from outside. But once they brought the water, to be prepared for times of war, they had to store the water. So in which other city can you find 500 underground cisterns like this? From about 400 or 500 cisterns in total, today we have been able to locate 150, 160 of them in different sizes. Not all of them are in good condition like this, but they are available everywhere. If you know where to find them, you can go and visit them. It is so interesting. So I'm going to show some of them to you now. This one is the most important one. This one is the largest one. This one is an imperial one. This one was built by Justinian. It is just opposite the Hagia Sophia. So Justinian, when he built the Hagia Sophia, he built this cistern as well. And in this cistern, they had water for the palace and the palace grounds. So this was the imperial cistern. And it is called as the Basilica Cistern. And in the construction of these cisterns, they generally used or recycled columns from the pagan temples. You remember when Christianity became the official religion, they tore down the temples. So whatever is reusable, they took them aside and they recycled them later on. So these columns and these capitals, they are not all the same. You see, some of the columns have pieces, some of them are one piece only. Some capitals are Corinthian style, some capitals are kind of Doric style. So they were all recycled from various buildings. And in the Basilica Cistern, there are 336 columns altogether. And the water came into this cistern. These were underground buildings. Water came into the building from one end, and it was filled with water, and it continued running from the other end. So they always kept these kinds of buildings full. In case the water was cut, they would have the full tank, full cistern, so that it would be enough for many months in the upcoming war days. So 336 columns, the Basilica Cistern, the famous movie, James Bond movie by Sean Connery from Russia with Love. It was shot here. And the Inferno movie from the author of the Da Vinci Code, it was also shot here. This is a beautiful place, and it is owned by the Metropolitan Municipality of Istanbul. It is in these days under restoration, but it is one of the most popular cisterns in Istanbul. This is another angle for the same cistern. So is this Basilica Cistern. They put lights. They always keep some water inside for demonstration purposes. You know, these cisterns were never meant to be seen by others. These were storage places for water. No one came inside this except for cleaning purposes. But today they are like museums. So actually, with the recycled material like the capitals and the columns, they look so beautiful. That's why it is picturesque and it is so beautiful today. The second largest cistern is called as Bin Bir Direk, meaning 1001 columns. This one is not far away from the Basilica Cistern. It has been rented out to a private company, and until recently they were making wedding receptions in here. 224 columns in this one. Also beautiful like the previous one. But now they are restoring it, and I don't know for what purpose they will be using it. This one is my favorite one, called as Şerefiye Cistern. It was built by Theodosius. Theodosius II, in the 5th century, much smaller in comparison to the other two. And it was in such a bad condition. I took this photo like 10, 15 years ago. You cannot recognize it today. Look how it is today. They have done a wonderful restoration inside, together with the lights, together with some exhibitions taking place there, sometimes fashion shows here, sometimes receptions here. It is such a beautiful place. Take a look at it. Same place, Theodosius Cistern. And then I have to mention the Nakkash cistern, somewhere very close to the ancient hippodrome, is a 4-floor large store, a building, a carpet store, and underneath the carpet store is a cistern, this one. And they have done a wonderful job there with the restoration, and they are using it as an exhibition hall. There's an exhibition on the ancient hippodrome inside here. Sometimes in the past, we had some musical concerts, some performances in here. It is so beautiful. The ancient hippodrome. You remember, I said that there was already a small hippodrome in Byzantium from before, but Constantine, when he wanted to make Byzantium his new capital city, he enlarged it. So this is the enlarged hippodrome from next to the palace grounds. And from the hippodrome, some of these monuments have survived to our day, for example. And it was in this hippodrome that the 30,000 people who were protesting against Justinian were slaughtered. As you see, the hippodrome has the U shape. The chariots would start from here, and this central axis was named as the spina, and the chariots had to complete 7 laps around the central axis, and this is the imperial box, and this is the palace. So on the days when they would have the chariot races, the emperor would walk from his palace into his imperial seat, hail people, make a few shows, receive homage from some people under his control, and start the races, give awards to the winners of the races. So this was the place where many of the Byzantine emperors would interact with people, would show off to people. And it's the main function of the hippodrome was that. So the curvy part of the hippodrome was named as the sphendon. And in the times when the need for storage of water increased a lot, they converted the underneath section of the sphendon into a cistern. I'm going to show you a picture of it from today. Take a look. These are the monuments from the central axis, and they built some Ottoman buildings on top, and later they built some schools in the early 20th century. Underneath the school, underneath the domes, is the hippodrome. So this is the sphendon, and underneath this building is, with special permission, we can get in there, and it is the cistern here. Let me show you the interior now. I don't know if anyone has seen this documentary. It's a beautiful documentary, Ancient Invisible Cities. In that documentary, they are entering into the hippodrome. I mean, they are entering into the section underneath the sphendon of the hippodrome. There is water in there. And they enter inside with a little boat, and they did some shootings. So it is so interesting. Ancient Invisible Cities. Take a look at it. A few shots from inside. Then there is a street between the Hagia Sophia and the Topkapı Palace called Fountain Street. There are a few nice restored buildings there, which are functioning like a small boutique hotel. And one little section there in that street is a Byzantine cistern, very small in size, but it has been restored to be a fine dining restaurant. And its name is the Sarnıç restaurant. The word Sarnıç is the Turkish word for cistern. Fine dining restaurant named as Sarnıç. Highly recommended. It is a very, very nice experience to have a dinner in such a place, for example. Another angle of the same restaurant. And in the same place, in the hotel part, in the Cold Fountain Street, in the same section, there is a very small cistern with only a few columns and capitals. What they did here today, they did something extraordinary. With some special permissions, they were able to convert the Byzantine cistern into a jacuzzi of a spa center. It is unique. This building is approximately 1,400 years old, and it was basically built for water purposes. And after 1,400 years, it is still used for water purposes, but with a small change, like jacuzzi. And then there is a private museum near the Golden Horn called as Rezan Has Museum. Underneath the Rezan Has Museum is a beautiful cistern called Seferikos. Much worth visiting. Antique Hotel in the Grand Bazaar area. Underneath the Antique Hotel was a cistern. They are making some exhibitions there today. Sometimes they put tables here and they do receptions there. Beautiful. Zeyrek Mosque, once upon a time, was a very large monastery dedicated to Christ Pantocrator. And it's a beautiful restoration today. This is the interior of the mosque. It's a functioning mosque today. And in the area of the Zeyrek Mosque, there are a few off the beaten, privately owned cisterns like this. Only with some special permission, we are able to get in these places. So unique. This one, Zeyrek cistern. And Yavuz Sultan Selim Mosque. Yavuz Sultan Selim was a sultan, and he was the father of Süleyman the Magnificent. And when he passed away, his son, Süleyman the Magnificent, built a mosque for his father, and Selim is buried here. And it is a beautiful location overlooking the Golden Horn. But let me draw your attention to this park. This large area in the Byzantine times was an open air cistern, a water storage place, like a big artificial pond, I mean, like a dam, but not a dam, of course. They brought water and they collected water here and they stored the water here. And today, the Turkish people have converted the whole area into a park. You can see the ancient walls, like 10 meters high, on the four sides, and the dimensions are large, like 100 by 100 meters, something like that. And the name of the cistern is Cistern of Aspar, from the Byzantine times. Same place, you see. You can identify the ancient walls on the four sides, but in the middle, it's a park today. And next to it is the Sultan Cistern, another wedding place. Beautiful location, and the setting is very interesting. The capitals and the columns and the tables, very nice. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have completed my underground tour here. I hope it has been a nice experience in these pandemic days. If you have any questions, it would be my pleasure to try to answer your questions.
Serif Bey, thank you very, very much. It was very interesting presentation. And me living in Istanbul for so many years, I mean, I have learned today a lot of things from you. So I need to discover when.
So I need to take you to these places, of course, later.
Yes,
no?
with your guiding.
Of course.
Yes, it would be perfect. So I would like to open the forum for questions. I saw the first one coming really at the beginning, when you started talking about the structures, is about the cafe. That it was the first picture. What was the name?
Let me try to remember. It is just opposite the Four Seasons Hotel in Sultanahmet. The name of the cafe, what was it? Başdoğan Cafe, maybe something like that, I guess. Başdoğan Cafe. But if you find the Four Seasons Hotel in the Old City, there are two Four Seasons in Istanbul, one on the Bosphorus, one in the Old City. It is just around the corner, opposite the building. Easy to find.
Thank you. Any other question?
Yeah. No direct question. I'm from Germany, and Serif, I'm normally 5 to 6 times a year in Istanbul. And I thought I know Istanbul, but no, I don't know Istanbul. So is it possible if I came with Rotarian friends to Istanbul, that I can book you and then you can show us this?
Of course, this is my job.
Magnificent things.
Yeah, it's my job, and I'm a tour guide, and I make my living from guiding, and I have been doing this job for more than 30 years now. Let me just type my web address in the chat box.
I write it on my phone.
You have it already.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So I know the biggest cistern near Hagia Sophia.
Yes.
But I didn't know the other elements. So it was incredible, and it is so magnificent to get this information from you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. You know, in the old days, when I started guiding like 30 years ago, we would take our guests mostly to the highlights. Bodrum Mosque, Hagia Sophia, Topkapı, Grand Bazaar, and finished.
Yes.
Now, the travel trends are changing. The travelers are not satisfied with the highlights only. Okay, highlights are important. We have to do it. But the next day, they want to go to the back streets. They want to discover new places. That's why, with the experience that I have been able to gather over the years, I created lots of interesting programs. I say underground Istanbul. I say rooftops of Istanbul. I say rooftops, the places that you cannot find on your own. It is my job to take you there, you know. And street food tours, you know, we go, we eat cockroach, we eat mushrooms, we eat mussels, you know, whatever we find in the street, you cannot trust them everywhere. So we have to taste them from before, we have to test them before, and then I must be able to take you to these places. So many other interesting programs we have to develop. These are the new trends in travel business.
Okay, the rooftops of Istanbul are so incredible, and you have a look. Also, I know only some, but you know much more, I think.
Of course. For example, aqueducts. Then you need a car and you need to go outside of Istanbul. There are so many aqueducts, you know, so interesting. 7 hills of Istanbul, Byzantine heritage, Ottoman heritage, Islamic heritage, Christian heritage. So many themes are available here.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
With this, I also encourage all the travelers, I mean, everyone in this group, I mean, to come to Turkey, to visit Istanbul, and let us meet together, and we will show you the beauties of the town together with Serif Bey.
With pleasure.
Yes. Any more questions would you like to ask?
Yeah, hi, this is Khan from Wiesbaden, Germany. First of all, big thank you. This was very exciting as usual. I mean, I'm really keen to go back to Turkey. Before the pandemic, I was nearly every month there, always looking for something new. My question would be, what is your favorite place in Istanbul outside the old town? Because just to give you an example, the last time I went to Arnavutköy, to an Armenian church where you have a grave, you go inside there. There are so many hidden places in Istanbul. But when you think about all of that, what you know, what is your most favorite?
It is a difficult question, of course. So rather than saying one place, discovering new parts of Istanbul is the greatest pleasure. After working as a guide for 32 years, I still learn every day. I love trying new places every day. You know, go to the Grand Bazaar area, for example. Go to Üsküdar. Go to Kuzguncuk. Yeah, there is so much to discover. Every day you lose your way there, and then you come across with new people. You discover new places. This is the nice part of it. I mean, it is never ending. There are lots of opportunities waiting for you for discoveries here. This is the nice thing about this beautiful city. Can you imagine? This city was the capital for 3 empires. First the Roman Empire, and then the Byzantine Empire, and then the Ottoman Empire. There is so much heritage here, cultural heritage, built on top of each other. And it is possible to see them all together there. This is the nice thing about it.
Now, what I like nowadays, there are so many niche tours in Istanbul, like night tour in Hagia Sophia before it became a mosque again, or Grand Bazaar, or Galata. As you say, so many little things, but you need to know the experts who know all the places, and it's always difficult. So now we have you.
Thank you. Yeah, Hagia Sophia by night was one of my specialties. I would love doing that, but unfortunately, it is not possible anymore because it has become a mosque. But we can create something else. There are always options.
Thank you.
Okay, Jackie.
I have a question from Jackie.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, you're muted again.
Okay. What is your favorite hammam?
Okay. For hammam, there are many options. First of all, hotels offer hammams, but then it may not be the real thing. You have to go to the real place. So, for example, architect Sinan in the 16th century built many hammams, and some of these hammams are still functioning. For example, the Hagia Sophia Hürrem Sultan Hammam is a luxury hammam, but built by architect Sinan from the 16th century, and the Kılıç Ali Pasha Hammam, built by architect Sinan again, and Süleymaniye Hammam, still functioning, built by architect Sinan from the 16th century. So Çemberli Taş, for example. This is also from Sinan and 16th century. So these are really historic ones, traditional ones. I think they come in different price ranges. You can pick one of them.
Right. I think I went to one of them built by Sinan, and I really enjoyed it. I thought I was just back in the ancient world. It was wonderful.
Yeah. You get this torture, and you pay on top of that. You pay for it, no?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it, huh?
I guess, yes, I guess if no more questions, I mean, I would like again to thank you very, very much for this marvelous tour. And on behalf of Galata Rotary Club, Çekmeköy Rotary Club, E-Club of Turkey, Kozyata Club, and Maslak Rotary Club, as well as 2 Interact clubs. I would like to thank you again, and I wish you a great time. So hope we will spend this time together someday with.
Okay, so Ms. Feruza Hanım,
beautiful.
I would like to thank you again for this beautiful, meaningful award. I love it. And it is always my pleasure. We can plan some new activities together. I'm always ready. I will be gone for a while, a little bit, and then I'll be back again. So as long as we have interest, I'm at your service. Thank you very much, and everyone for participating, taking the time and arranging this. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Yes.
I'm from.
Yes. Bye-bye, take care.
Hoşça kal.
For joining.
Teşekkür ederiz Şerif Bey.
Yes.
Biz teşekkür ederiz Murat
Yüreğinize
Bey. Sağ olun.
sağlık.
Sağ olun.
Harikaydı.
Harikaydı gerçekten. Çok teşekkürler.
Çok mu uzun oldu acaba ya? Kaç
Yok,
oldu?
Çok güzeldi.
Çok güzel
Bence
oldu.
kıvamında
Neredeyse
tadındaydı.
2 saat olmuş ya. Abarttık.
Ama tam yerindeydik.
Hatta
Dolu
yetmedi
doluydu
bile.
Yani.
Devam edebilirdik.
Bence
Konudan
de
konuya
devam
atladık
edebilirdik.
Tam
Sağ olun.
dolu
Çok
doluydu.
teşekkürler.
Teşekkürler ederim.
Teşekkür ederiz
tekrar. Sağ olun. Herkese iyi akşamlar.
İyi akşamlar İnci Hanım. Sağ olun. Teşekkürler.
İyi
Murat
akşamlar.
Başkanım,
Tekrar
teşekkür
teşekkür
ederim.
Ay Banu sağ ol.
İyi
Teşekkürler.
akşamlar efendim. Rica ederiz.
İyi akşamlar.
Güzel
Çok
bir
teşekkür
toplantıydı.
ederiz. Çok
Sağ
Güzel
olun.
güzeldi.
başkanım.
Sağ olun.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
İyi akşamlar.
İyi
Görüşmek
akşamlar.
üzere.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hans, for joining.
Yes, I'm from Bavaria, Süd, from Germany.
From Bavaria.
Yes, I was more
Very nice.
10 times in Istanbul, but I have not all seen what you have shown you.